The funny thing is that what's hard with investing, most of your thought is logical. But to arrive at this state of understanding, logic cannot take you there because logic itself created that problem. So to solve that problem, you have to solve it from somewhere outside of the system that created the problem. I There were many people that I saw were the most intelligent when it comes to philosophy, and they all realized that there was no such thing as a self. And I did not realize that. And I said, okay, if I think that they said 100 statements which were completely true, and their 101st statement was that there was no self, and I did not understand it, then the probability of them being right is extremely high. So I looked into it, I looked into it. What looking into it looks like is just gently trying to see without any force. It's it's extremely hard to explain, but there is no force involved. It's only trying to see quietly why things work the way they are in your mind.
So, I mean, just talk about like you find out about Warren Buffett at 18, 19 years old, and you could tell right away that there was something different about his reasoning. And I mean, have you always been like a deep thinker, or how would you say, because I know a lot of 18, 19-year olds that aren't thinking deeply about Warren Buffett. So, what would you say? Yeah, just tell us a little bit about like, have you always been interested in philosophy or um, just how did you get to where you are today?
Yes, I think I was always interested in thinking a lot and understanding why things happen. And also, from quite a young age, I realized that what I was hearing around me, like certain life advice, it really didn't feel right at the time. But I couldn't find reasoning to prove them wrong. So people would give me advice, and I would feel resentful from that advice because I know it's wrong, or I thought it was wrong. But there wasn't a way for me to really understand what was wrong. It just felt wrong, I guess. And when I was, I would say, 18 or 19, I found a podcast on Naval Ravikant. I don't know if you know him.
Hmm.
And he had a podcast with Kapil Gupta. And I was in the car listening to the podcast. And once he asked him, what should I do to lower my anxiety or get rid of it? And Kapil Gupta told him, there is nothing you can do, but there's everything you have to understand. And when he said that, it felt so intelligent, but at the same time, I couldn't really tell or couldn't really understand the depth of that wisdom he gave him. So I started reading about this guy, Kapil Gupta, and after maybe a year or two, I found a few other people who talked about philosophy as well and life. And I gradually realized that the people I saw that were most intelligent all came to the same conclusions. And that for me kind of meant that there is only one truth, but there are many falsehoods. So if all the most intelligent people are all pointing to the same direction, then clearly if I'm not seeing it, then I'm in the wrong. So I have to see what needs to be understood. And the same with Warren Buffett. I I guess it's just a feeling that something makes sense. I think it's developed over time, definitely, but that's how it is. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for going through that. So, as I was talking about you being a deep thinker, I love this part of your website you have called Life Insights. I feel like you don't see that super often on a fund website. So, do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Ah, yes, sure. It's one of my favorite the tabs on Build Back Capital website, even though it doesn't get much attention, but I really enjoy writing them. And I started writing them for myself, to be fair. But some people reached out and they liked it, and I was like, all right, might as well share it to the public, I guess. So for life, I guess the reason why I suffer and don't get the things I want out of life is because there are things I don't understand about my mind and about reality. So what I do is just try to figure out what my filters are, which are preventing me from seeing reality as it is. Because if I really saw reality as it is, I wouldn't be affected by my emotions or even by my thoughts.
So seeing, yeah, you have this quote on there, intelligence can only be measured by the discrepancy between what is seen and what is there. The lower the discrepancy, the greater the intelligence.
Yes, that's right. Uh, I because if you see reality as it is, you've arrived basically. There's nothing more than seeing reality as it is. That is the ultimate point of understanding. For there to be no filter between your perception of reality and reality itself.
Yeah, so give us an example of what you mean by this, because I think there's really amazing truth to this very simple statement, but like you could see reality for what it is, and you could still be upset about that reality, no?
And no, you can only be upset about it if you don't see it, which kind of looks strange or sounds strange. I think the most important illusion that we face, including myself up till a few months ago, was the illusion of the self. And what I mean is that when you look in the mirror, there's a body and clearly there's a mind or a brain inside the body. But we also think that there is a person experiencing these things as one unit. And it's not quite the case. The reality is that there is an experience of these things as a unit, but there isn't a person experiencing it. And it looks like a small difference, but it makes an extremely large difference in all areas of life, and including you understanding where your emotions come from and thoughts as well. And that's something I had been working on for a bit more than 2 years, I guess.
So when you mean working on it, what does that actually look like?
It doesn't feel like work. Let me be clear. So it's not like it's time for philosophy time or something like that. I I just got curious, and when I walk, I think about it. When I have free time, I think about it. Um, I There were many people that I saw were the most intelligent when it comes to philosophy, and they all realized that there was no such thing as a self. And I did not realize that. And I said, okay, if I think that they said 100 statements which were completely true, and their 101st statement was that there was no self, and I did not understand it, then the probability of them being right is extremely high. So I looked into it. I looked into it. What looking into it looks like is just gently trying to see without any force. It's it's extremely hard to explain, but there is no force involved. It's only trying to see quietly why things work the way they are in your mind.
Yeah, I love that statement. So can you give us an example where pre 2 years ago for you, you would have been upset about something or emotional about something, but now with this understanding, it doesn't affect you?
Yes. So I used to get affected, for example, when I drive and someone behind me honks the horn for nothing. I would be like, what do you want? Type of thing. And after that, when I hear the horn, sometimes there is a reactive thought that would create anger, but I would see that thought as insignificant. And since the thought is insignificant, it fails to leave an impression it fails to give relevance to to the emotion. So I would not feel the emotion in that case. But it's not always the case where I don't feel emotions. I still do feel emotions, but when I am aware of them, they usually go away. Now, if the emotion is extremely strong and there's a body reaction attached to it, like an increasing heart rate and shaking, then even though the emotion can be eradicated, sometimes the body still needs time to cool down, kind of.
So you're saying that this thought comes to your mind and the emotion is not significant, so it lessens your reaction to it. And so the self, I would love for you to go a little bit more into that with there is no self. It's just like what is you're thinking, okay, this person behind me in the car, they might have had a bad day and they're not actually taking it out on me, or even you thinking about yourself in that way that is
Yes, that
limiting.
is all exactly. So that's why it's full of traps. Because the self is, it is, how would I say this? It's assumed in nearly every part of our life, and that's why
Right.
it's so hard to get rid of it, because it's so easily reinforced, especially when we're young. Um,
Right, self-esteem.
exactly. And people say love yourself and your self-esteem should be high, and well, there is no self, so there is no self-esteem. But when someone is angry at you, it my thought doesn't go like, okay, he had a bad day. My thought usually, the first reactive thought usually comes as anger. So what does this guy want? But if I see that thought coming, I would realize that it's not significant at all, and that itself is enough to not create the emotion. Because emotion is created by thought. Without thought, there is no real emotion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very different way to think because, yeah, it's just like so ingrained in us. Um,
Yeah, the reason why we believe so strongly that there is a self is that when we're young, we're given a name. We are reinforced to look in the mirror and make up our hair, dress nicely, uh, look kind towards others, look emotionally intelligent or intelligent, try to prove ourselves. And the feedback loop is so strong and so fast that it goes away unnoticed through your whole life. And that's actually the one illusion that snowballs into everywhere else.
so what is there? Like who is Gabi Sammut?
Gabi Samut is the name that you give to the person talking to you, but yeah, there is an experience of this, but there is no entity. And the funny thing is that what's hard with investing, most of your thought is logical. But to arrive at this state of understanding, logic cannot take you there because logic itself created that problem. So to solve that problem, you have to solve it from somewhere outside of the system that created the problem.
So how does this thinking about there being no self, how does this affect your investing?
Mostly it helps in a way that when emotions are felt, they are usually understood for what they are. And no emotional decisions are really done. That's that's what I would say impacts the most. And also what's good is that I usually get to know which thoughts are true and or not. So I can quickly get to the truth because there's kind of like a filter through my thoughts, which, to be fair, 90% of my thoughts are quite useless. So those are discarded quickly, and the few that remain sometimes are good, and those I keep to build my understanding of investing.
How do you think purpose relates to all of this?
So, you mean what's the purpose of life or life purpose?
Yeah, however you want to take it.
So, the question is more important than the answer for this. And the answer is that life has no purpose, but that answer is not enough for someone who asks it, because that someone is best, if he wants to learn about the purpose of life, he is best to look at why the problem came in the at why the question came in the first place.
Right.
And the question came as a reactive thought to something else. And I cannot tell you what that reactive thought was, but the person that asked it can definitely know what it was if he is interested enough in that. So life has no purpose, but if you feel disappointed about that, then you're still not seeing reality as it is, because it shouldn't disappoint you that life has no meaning. If anything, it it gives you a lot of freedom because you realize that you can do whatever you want.
That would be an epic way to end this. I feel the philosopher Gabi Sammut.
Yeah, I guess so. I know it's I know what I say maybe sounds stupid or controversial, but it's the result of looking at things the way they are and not taking anyone's advice for granted. Just looking at things from literally first principles, from your own
Mhm.
experience.
Well, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to touch on today?
I'm not sure. I would like to thank you very much for this invitation. I saw quite a few of your podcasts, and I like a lot most of them, especially the one with Nick Peters and also with Ian. Um, and yeah, that's all, I guess. I
Awesome.
really
Well,
appreciate your time.
yeah, likewise. Thanks for coming on, Gabby. It was very interesting.
Thanks.